It started with rumors and ended with rings before the headlines, before the helicopters, and before Venice. There was a story no one expected: the billionaire and the broadcaster, two lives colliding at the exact wrong time, yet somehow becoming exactly right. This is how Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sánchez went from whispers in the dark to a love that refused to hide. It's official: Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sánchez are now husband and wife. Their love story, one that began under flashing lights and public judgment, has reached a new chapter on June 27, 2025. The billionaire founder of Amazon tied the knot with the former Good Day LA anchor in Venice, Italy, surrounded by more than 200 family members and friends. The air was warm, the canals sparkled, and whispers of their 6-year journey seemed to echo through every corner of the floating city. This wasn't just a wedding, it was a statement. A full-circle moment for a couple who once faced the world's most intense spotlight and somehow managed to come out smiling. For years, their relationship had been the talk of tabloids and late-night shows. When news of their romance first broke in early 2019, the world was stunned. It wasn't just that Bezos, the richest man alive at the time, was dating a television personality. It was how the story began, the timing, the shockwaves that followed, and the way both of their lives would change forever. Before that moment, Jeff had been seen as a tech visionary, a reserved business titan, someone whose name was synonymous with innovation and wealth, but not with scandal. Lauren, meanwhile, had built her own reputation as a journalist, pilot, and television personality. Confident, bold, and charismatic, she was known for her energy and ambition. The kind of woman who could command a room, but no one could have predicted that their worlds would collide in a way that would alter both of their lives permanently. When Bezos announced his divorce from Mackenzie Scott after 25 years of marriage, the internet exploded almost instantly. Rumors swirled that Lauren was the reason behind it. Their names were linked in headlines across the globe, and every detail of their personal lives became front-page news. Private messages leaked. Paparazzi followed them everywhere, and speculation turned their love story into a global spectacle. Yet beneath all that noise was something neither of them could deny: they were in love. And despite the scrutiny, they refused to hide it. In the years that followed, Bezos and Sanchez built their relationship not in the shadows, but in the open. They attended charity events, film festivals, and red carpets side by side. Their dynamic was undeniable. She brought warmth and spontaneity. He brought focus and structure. Together, they looked like opposites, yet completely in sync. While critics dissected their every move, the couple quietly built a new chapter away from the Amazon boardrooms and newsroom studios. Their relationship evolved from tabloid frenzy to something resembling a genuine partnership, one rooted in adventure, trust, and vision. Venice was the perfect place for their wedding, not just for its beauty, but for its symbolism. The city of water, resilience, and rebirth mirrored their journey. They had been through storms and still found their calm. Lauren wore an elegant custom gown that shimmered under the Italian sun, her look timeless yet daring. Just like her personality, Bezos appeared more relaxed than ever in a perfectly tailored suit, his once sharp business persona softened by the emotion of the moment when they exchanged vows surrounded by friends, celebrities, and global figures. The tone wasn't corporate or extravagant. It was emotional, human, and deeply personal. This wasn't just about love. It was about transformation. Jeff Bezos, once the image of tech detachment, had become someone more open to life beyond business. Lauren Sánchez, once reduced by tabloids to labels, had emerged as a woman of strength. Independence and devotion together, they had redefined what a modern power couple could look like, not built on image, but on shared ambition and mutual respect. Their wedding wasn't just another billionaire event, it was the closing of a chapter that had begun with scandal, and the start of one written on their own terms. The floating lights of Venice, reflected in the canals that night, seemed to capture more than just celebration. They captured redemption, resilience, and a kind of love that refused to be defined by headlines or public judgment. As guests danced beneath the stars and laughter echoed through the night, there was an undeniable sense that this union was more than a ceremony. It was a statement that no matter how loud the world becomes, some stories are meant to find their peace in the quiet glow of commitment. News of their relationship first broke in January 2019, a moment that sent shockwaves through both Hollywood and Wall Street. The timing was almost surreal. That same week, Jeff Bezos publicly announced his divorce from Mackenzie Scott, his wife of 25 years, in a calm and measured statement posted on X, back then known as Twitter. It was brief, polite, and diplomatic, the kind of announcement you'd expect from a man whose entire life had been built around control and precision. But behind that short message was a turning point that no amount of corporate composure could disguise. Because for the first time, the world saw cracks in the life of one of the most disciplined men in modern history. Bezos and Mackenzie had shared a storybook rise they met in the early 90s when Amazon was still just a dream born in a Seattle garage. She was there from the beginning, helping him ship books and build the company brick by brick. Their marriage seemed solid, enduring, even graceful. In its simplicity, they raised 4 children and kept most of their private life out of the headlines. That is until early 2019 when the internet erupted with one named Lauren Sánchez. At the same time, Lauren's own personal life was unraveling in the glare of the same spotlight. She had been married for nearly 14 years to Patrick Whitesell, one of Hollywood's most powerful agents, representing names that could fill a red carpet in seconds together. They had built a family, raised 2 children, and moved in the highest circles of Los Angeles entertainment. Lauren was well-connected, respected, and charismatic. She wasn't just a news anchor. She was a pilot, a businesswoman, and a woman with ambition of her own. She also had a son from her previous relationship with former NFL player Tony Gonzalez, someone she still spoke highly of for his role as a father. So when reports emerged that Bezos and Sanchez were romantically involved, it didn't just feel like another celebrity headline, it felt like a cultural earthquake. 2 of the most successful people in their respective worlds had crossed paths at a time when both their marriages were ending, and the timing raised questions, speculation, and a media storm that neither of them could fully control. Suddenly, every outlet from People magazine to the Wall Street Journal was dissecting their private lives, analyzing timelines, and drawing conclusions, most of which were based on assumption rather than fact. The headlines were relentless. Photos surfaced, text messages were leaked, and for weeks the story refused to fade away. There were moments when it seemed like both of them were being pulled under by the sheer weight of public curiosity. Yet through it all, Bezos remained silent and Sanchez composed. Neither of them lashed out, neither gave interviews, or sought to defend themselves in tabloids. They seemed to make a quiet decision to face the storm together, and that silence in itself became their statement. Behind the scenes, though, what most didn't see was how deeply personal that period was for both of them. It wasn't just about ending marriages, it was about redefining identity for Bezos. It meant stepping away from the image of a man solely driven by algorithms and markets for Lauren. It meant breaking free from the Hollywood narrative that often oversimplified ambitious women. Both were rebuilding their lives while being watched by the world, and that pressure could have easily destroyed them, but instead, it became the foundation of what they would eventually build together. Friends close to the couple would later describe that period as the crucible, the moment that tested whether what they had was real or just a byproduct of chaos, because it's easy to fall in love in private, but falling in love under a microscope where every move is questioned, every glance photographed, and every rumor amplified is something very few can survive. Yet they traveled quietly, stayed close to their inner circles, and focused on their shared passions: aviation, philanthropy, and storytelling. For Lauren, flying was freedom she had always said the world looks clearer from above the clouds. For Jeff, it was exploration. He had spent his life building systems that reached across continents. Now he was learning to live moment to moment, and that connection between them, flying together, exploring together, became symbolic of what they were building away from the noise. By the end of that year, their relationship had gone from rumor to reality. They appeared together at public events, more comfortable in their presence. And though criticism lingered, they no longer seemed to care. In a world that thrives on judgment, they chose to live authentically, and in that choice, they found calm. It's easy to forget that behind every headline are 2 human beings learning to navigate life's changes. For Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sánchez, those changes happened under the brightest possible light. And while their beginnings may have been shadowed by controversy, what followed was a gradual, quiet transformation of two people discovering, not just each other, but who they could become when they stopped living for the world's approval and started living for their own truth. Exactly when or how Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sánchez first met remains something of a mystery, a detail carefully guarded even years later. But according to those who know them best, their connection didn't start with romance, it started with work. Both shared a fascination with the skies, Bezos through his space exploration company Blue Origin, and Sanchez through her experience in aviation and aerial filming. She had built a career behind the camera as much as in front of it, producing stunning aerial footage for films and documentaries, flying helicopters herself, and proving time and again that she was more than just a TV personality. She was a storyteller, a pilot, and a woman who loved adventure. Their worlds collided through creative projects connected to that passion. Bezos had long dreamed of advancing human flight beyond Earth, while Lauren had spent years mastering how to capture the beauty of flight within it. That common ground became their bridge. What began as collaboration slowly turned into conversation. Those who worked with them described an instant understanding, an easy rhythm between two people who both thrived on vision and precision. They spoke the same language: curiosity, ambition, and a sense of wonder about what could be achieved beyond limits. At first, it was professional meetings, brainstorming sessions, and shared projects. But over time, something shifted. A friendship began to grow. Not the kind built on small talk or convenience, but the kind that grows from mutual respect and shared energy. Sources close to the couple would later say that there was no impulsive spark, no reckless leap. Instead, there was a gradual unfolding, two people who spent more and more time together realizing they connected on a level that went beyond work, beyond image, and even beyond expectation. They bonded over long discussions about storytelling, about how technology and humanity could coexist, and how flight, both literal and metaphorical, could give people new ways to see the world. Bezos admired her creativity, her fearlessness, and her grounded optimism. Lauren admired his drive, his intellect, and his belief that anything was possible when approached with purpose. Over time, admiration became affection, and affection became love. But love in their world is never simple once word of their connection reached the public. Their every move was scrutinized, every photograph analyzed, every gesture dissected. Yet somehow they endured the noise. They did not rush. They did not hide. They let time speak for them. Instead of press releases or interviews, they focused on living their truth, quietly building a foundation that no amount of gossip could shake. For more than 4 years, they navigated the unpredictable waves of fame and speculation together. They were seen at charity events, at film premieres, and at space launches, always composed, always together. Lauren supported Jeff through Blue Origin's milestones, and he supported her as she continued her work in media and aviation. They began to appear as a team not just romantically, but professionally. She hosted events connected to space and women in aviation, while he encouraged her ventures into production and philanthropy. By May 2023, the quiet stability they had built finally reached its natural next chapter during a trip that blended elegance and intimacy. Jeff proposed the engagement was both inevitable and symbolic, a milestone that represented more than a ring. It was a declaration that their story had survived everything that once threatened to define it, from public skepticism to relentless paparazzi coverage, from early scandals to years of speculation. They had arrived at a place of peace. When Bezos slipped the ring onto Lauren's finger, it wasn't just a romantic gesture, it was a moment that signaled endurance. Two people who had met through shared dreams had turned those dreams into a life together. And while their engagement made headlines across the globe, it carried a sense of quiet dignity. There was no media spectacle, no press conference, just two people celebrating a love that had outlasted rumor and grown stronger in the process. For Lauren, the engagement meant more than just marriage. It was a recognition of everything she had weathered with grace. Her name, once linked to scandal, was now being associated with resilience and partnership for Jeff. It was an evolution. The businessman who had spent decades building empires was now building something far more personal. a family, a second chance at love, a story that was his own. Their engagement became a global headline, but for those who watched closely, it also became something softer. A reminder that even in a world obsessed with power and wealth, love can still grow quietly, patiently, and without apology. It becomes a mirror held up to the culture, late 2018, reflecting the way society were already there. Measure women by that at the time seemed ordinary, while men escape in hindsight told the story of a love quickly public opinion can shape in October of that year to disdain. Long before any public statements or narratives media storm photographers captured Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sánchez sharing a helicopter ride over Santa Monica, California, offering her the dignity of being complex, Jeff seated beside her, smiling as and human. The coastline stretched out beneath them. Lauren's, it was an image that would later become symbolic because of who she is, soaring above the city, she represents, unaware that the ground below was about to erupt with attention, and the audacity to step didn't make headlines right away. They were just another set of candid shots tucked away in unimaginable privilege. But months later, when their relationship became public, those same images resurfaced, and suddenly everything made sense. Fascinating. It wasn't an affair played out in secrecy or a reckless move. To understand her story was two people in transition, the mechanics, two lives changing course, the media behind the scenes, tendency to build women up only to tear them down again. Was actually something that had been unfolding with time and ending care. At all, but a continuation of a cycle that will repeat. Jeff and Lauren had already been dares to live spending time together socially, attending events, moving in the same circles. Lauren Sánchez has already left her mark by showing us not only who she is, one insider told people who we are when we look at her. It was casual, and perhaps they would see each other at gatherings the cameras and talk about work, family. That is the truest victory she can claim. But as the months passed, no matter how many times people say she can't win, it wasn't rushed. She has already changed the game simply by playing it her way. At first, it was socially here and there, the source said, but their time together definitely seemed to evolve. Raising some eyebrows, Jeff has even met some of Lauren's closest friends. The two of them are thick as thieves right now. That friendship turned closeness was becoming impossible to ignore, but still neither of them sought to make it public. They lived those early days with a quiet restraint, aware of how easily perception can twist reality. Then came that helicopter ride over Santa Monica, a single day that would later become one of the first visual confirmations of what was already real behind the smiles behind the lenses that captured them, was something rare, a partnership that was forming not from chaos, but from connection. By the start of 2019, both of their lives had officially changed forever. The divorces that once lingered in the background were finalized, and the speculation that surrounded them finally had an answer. Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sánchez were officially a couple, and they didn't hide from it. They didn't issue denials or play games. Instead, they faced the public with dignity and calm, the same way they had faced the storm months earlier. When Jeff and Mackenzie Scott announced their separation, it wasn't through scandal or accusation, it was through grace. Their joint statement reflected a maturity rarely seen in celebrity or corporate circles. "We feel incredibly lucky to have found each other," they wrote, "and deeply grateful for every one of the years we were married. If we had known we would separate after 25 years, we would still do it all again." It was a message not of loss, but of gratitude. Two people acknowledging a shared past and moving forward without bitterness or regret. That tone would come to define Jeff's relationship with Lauren as well, grounded, respectful, and intentional. While much of the public was busy speculating, they were busy building something. Steady behind the noise, their love was not built on rebellion, it was built on renewal. Two people who had reached turning points in their lives and found in each other a sense of comfort and understanding. Lauren's own divorce from Patrick Whitesell was handled quietly and privately. Though it marked the end of a long marriage, it also opened a door to something new. Those close to her said that during that period, she leaned into reflection. She focused on her children, her work, and the realization that her life was entering a new phase. And during that same time, Jeff was going through his own transformation, stepping away from the life that had defined him for decades, and rediscovering what happiness outside of business might look like. As their respective marriages ended, the bond between Jeff and Lauren deepened, not out of scandal, but out of shared experience. They both knew what it meant to rebuild, to face judgment, to start over, and that understanding drew them closer. What outsiders saw as controversy was in truth a moment of alignment, two lives meeting at the right time after years of living parallel stories. By spring of 2019, the world had finally accepted what was already clear. They weren't hiding, they weren't pretending. They were simply living two people finding their balance in a world that often refuses to give grace. Their public appearances together became more natural, softer, more assured, and while cameras followed their every move, their smiles seemed lighter, freer because after everything they had been through, they were finally standing in the open together.